Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome. I am so excited. Today, I am here with Fred Kohler, Kaler. I'm sorry. I did it already, and we're just started. We literally just had this conversation. Fred Kahler. We are here to discuss how Ready Chapter 1 helps authors perfect their craft. I'm so excited to have you join us for this special event, because whether you're a first-time author or you're just starting your journey, or a seasoned author looking to take your manuscript to that next level, I think today's conversation with you, Fred, is going to be really impactful for our authors. You are a 20-year publishing veteran, award-winning author yourself, and a passionate advocate for writers. Your books have earned numerous accolades, including a Boston Globe Horn Book Honor Award. And then in 2022, you founded Ready Chapter 1, and a platform that is designed to help writers connect, grow their craft, and discover publishing opportunities. It's amazing, I think what you've done to help empower authors through peer review and the focus on ethical use of technology to support, this creativity, make you the perfect person to chat with today, especially in such an evolving environment that we are now in with the publishing industry. And there's a fun fact that you shared, that you have an adorable rescue pup named Cheerio Muttface McChubbybutt, which, what a mouthful of a name. I also have a dog. She is right behind me sleeping. Her name is Chloe. So a little bit easier to say, but that's so sweet. She's also a rescue. So happy to have some dog lovers out there. Yeah. So today we'll be diving into how Ready Chapter 1 can help writers improve their work, build connections, and get closer to their publishing goals. We'll also explore how your peer review can be especially valuable, in the self-publishing industry. So thank you so much for coming. I feel like that was a really long introduction, but I'm really appreciative that you're here.
Yeah, I mean, you just gave the whole commercial for, for what we built. So can we go now? I
know, right? It's like, and we're done. But let's dive right into it. For those watching, please post your comments and questions. We definitely want to hear from you. But let's get started with the very beginning of the basics here. So tell us then about Ready Chapter 1 and what inspired its creation.
Absolutely. So again, thanks again for having me. So my wife and I are both writers. We've both been in the industry for 20 years. We met at a writers' conference, as a matter of fact. And so when the pandemic hit us back in 2022, we had these local writers, groups, and we would get together at a coffee shop or in the evening at a pub and just let everybody kind of read what they were working on. And when COVID hit and we weren't allowed to meet in person anymore, it was just like, oh, well, this really stinks for all of our writers. So we started, we were like, I bet we could do something online. We didn't really have the full concept of what that would be. But we started off just by, hosting online classes for writers, and, just letting all of our friends who were seasoned publishing professionals teach what they knew. And so that kind of blew. And somewhere along the way, we decided that we needed to build an actual feedback exchange for writers. And that's what really became the heart of Ready Chapter 1.
Oh, that's amazing. So it really just grew out of a passion of writing yourself, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Well, and this, when you're in the industry and people hear that you've had, this much success, then you get 1,000 questions every single day about, how do I do this? Could you read that? And so, you want to help as many people as you possibly can. But it got to the point for us where we're like, well, we would love to read all of these pages of all of these writers who would like to know if their thing was, if their writing was ready to go out on submission, but we just didn't have the time. And so the kind of question in our mind is, can we at scale answer the question, is this thing I wrote any good? And that's that became the feedback forum, is by letting people post what they're working on, letting other writers comment on it, but actually measuring that on a scale. We were able to essentially solve that question for 1 million writers, for 100 million writers.
Wow. So that actually does bring me to the next question about, with Ready Chapter 1, you have something called the story score system. So how does that then help writers improve their work? It seems sort of you were touching on that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So when you post your work on our site, so again, it's a feedback exchange, and I have to talk about the fact that it's an exchange. So you don't get to just post your work and not read anybody else's stuff. That because if we had it set up that way, nobody would get any comments, nobody would get any reviews on their work. So it's a tokenized exchange. So you're going to give feedback to a couple of people, and then you're going to get the opportunity to post your work. Well, when you do give that feedback, we're asking you to answer some very simple gut level 1 to 5 questions. And so it's, did the narrator's voice resonate with you? Are you curious about what happens next in this story? And it's these really, really gut level questions. But when you ask them in that very simple way, we'll find that it takes less than a minute to go through and answer the questions. But then we can aggregate those scores from all of those questions and basically spit out on the other side for that writer. Well, here's how everyone responded to your narrative voice. Here's how everyone responded to your character. Here's how everyone responded to the plot. And just by looking at those different elements of craft and how the community responded, you'll know first of all, what needs the most work in that chapter, that scene or chapter.
And you go chapter by chapter then, like you wouldn't just upload like a full manuscript, let's say, to this site. You would basically go chapter by chapter at a time.
Yeah. And we found that works best just because it's a huge commitment to beta read somebody's entire novel.
Yeah.
But this way, what's great is you get feedback from strangers. And if you really want to know if your work is ready to go out, feedback from strangers is the perfect way.
Absolutely. So that's how the sort of this peer, you call it an exchange, I guess, a writer's exchange. Yeah. Is that what you called it? And that's, so what benefits then, how does that work if you are submitting chapter by chapter, right? How does that help, writers at different stages of their journey? And separately, a follow-up to that is like, how does it help new writers versus authors that are already published?
For sure. Yeah. So as a multi-published author, I'll start there because I use the site. At this point, I kind of I have my author toolkit. I know I know what techniques I use that my readers absolutely love. However, I don't always know if my new idea is any good. So I can post 2 or 3 chapters of my brand new shiny idea, and I will get legit real world feedback because I'm on the site and I don't let anybody know that I'm anybody other than just another random user. So when I post my stuff, I get this genuine, again, gut level feedback. And sometimes I post something that I think this is going to be, the next Harry Potter. And then somebody else, the community's like, it's okay. And so, as much as that hurts,
oh man,
but it tells me which projects to put on the shelf and let simmer a bit longer, and which projects are like, oh, this is solid. This is ready to go.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh no, I was just going to say, so, as for an established writer, it's really that feedback on the concept and the characters, and the plot, that you can squeeze out of those first few chapters. That is so super impactful for me. For newer and beginning writers, I mean, you need the regular feedback. You need the you need to know when you're jumping heads, from character point of view. You need to know if you're, using the wrong kind of syntax. It's the mechanics of writing craft that you're going to get the feedback on. And so I think there's just a continuum, of how do you need more of this kind of feedback or more of that kind of feedback? And you can actually let the community know exactly what kind of feedback you're looking for. So that's super helpful as well.
Definitely. That actually makes me, as we're talking about the feedback, one of the things that I can't help but wonder is, obviously putting your work out there is very vulnerable, and getting that feedback that can be a little intimidating. So how do you make sure that Ready Chapter One like ensures that like the feedback provided, I know you said you have like certain criteria that you look for, but is both actionable and respectful?
Yeah. And yeah, the only way that we keep this community from, devolving into, Reddit land, is with culture. And that's,
Okay.
so we emphasize it. We talk a lot about the critique sandwich. So, we're always looking for, help them identify the thing that was best about what they wrote. Let them know where you were confused or where you lost interest, and try and close out with something positive. And so not everybody's going to follow that. People are going to get their feelings hurt from time to time. I get my feelings hurt from time to time. I'm like, they didn't understand me. But when that happens, though, it's a clue. So whenever I post something and I feel like the audience didn't understand, that's my fault as the writer, right? So that's a cue for me to go back and say, oh, well, why didn't they get what I was going for? Oh. And then I identify those moments in my story that need revision. And it is, across the board, when people post revised versions of their story based on the feedback they got, they just see their scores go up and up and up.
It can be very scary, but I guess, it's better to start getting it like your story perfected now than later when you put it out there for thousands of people to kind of review without the chance to go back and edit. So that's really interesting. And I guess now I want to understand more about like how we leverage those peer reviews, because we're talking so much about them and they're so obviously important to what you do. So for our self-published authors who don't have that traditional editorial feedback, I know we talked about going, basically you submit your work and it gets peer reviewed. And so that helps them refine, before publication. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, especially from, the self-published angle. So, if I know what level my stuff, like my work, needs to be at when I'm going to send it, to an editor, to my agent. But it's still super helpful to get that kind of like gut level reaction from the community. And if you don't have those folks in your life, if you don't have those editors and those agents, the reading world is brutal. And the expectations, even on self-published stuff, is that, you have a really, really polished, high quality manuscript. And so for anyone who's self-publishing, I recommend Ready Chapter One as a way to polish your work till it shines.
Yeah.
And especially go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, especially because anyone who's new to self-publishing particularly may not have like a beta reader group, right, where you can bounce ideas off of. And so there might be people thinking, well, how do I get someone to even read my book that's going to give that unbiased feedback? It's like, it's one thing to give it to your family and friends to kind of read and go from there. But then, if you don't have that group of readers because you're not as established, that's, I think, what Ready Chapter One can really help with, getting a self-published author to that point where the book is ready, right? Because I think my next question was going to that idea of like how, with many self-publishing authors, as they're trying to figure out when their book is ready to be published, how does Ready Chapter One actually like help you determine that?
Yeah, sure. So we have kind of again with our aggregate scoring system, which is it's so nerdy. Like, I took a personality profile, and apparently I am the scientist personality profile, which makes a little bit of sense. Although I'm like, no, I'm the artist profile. I'm the profile. No, you're a scientist. Okay, fine. I'm a scientist. But the way we aggregate those numbers, we've actually have done our own predictive analytics of what makes a story ready to go out on submission. And again, it's that combination of narrative voice. It's a character that you fall in love with. It's a plot that hasn't really been overdone before, a concept and a plot that's kind of fresh and original. and dialogue is another huge one. So like if you know how to write crackerjack, snappy dialogue, people like that's what makes those are the keys kind of in our world that make people fall in love with your manuscript. So when we aggregate all of those numbers, it actually spits out a score, kind of like a Rotten Tomatoes or an IMDb score.
Wow.
And we've even got a little marker on it that's like, look, when you get up to around this number, that's when editors and agents are going to start like really, really paying attention to your work. So for someone who's self-publishing, if you can push it, if you can gamify the process in your brain, like, all right, I'm pushing for scores that are this high. And basically, if you know that like, I'm not going to publish this until I get this level of feedback from the whole community, well, then you'll know when your book is ready.
I see. Okay. So it kind of tells you essentially, you don't have to, you take the guesswork out of it a little bit.
Well, that was a way easier way of saying it. Yes.
No, but I like the detail because it's so interesting and trying to, obviously for those who are watching here, trying to conceptualize how this would all look. It's important to get that piece of information about, you'll actually be scored, and so then we will tell you when your book is ready.
You get a report card grade. Yep.
Yeah, I know it can be a little intimidating and scary, but I think at the same time, I'm sure there's plenty of people who like myself actually, who would just be like, you know what? I would like that. I would like the certainty of that. Yeah. So, what, I think what I wanted to ask now is about more like with self-publishing authors, are there any success stories that come to mind, from anyone who's benefited from Ready Chapter 1 already, or just success stories in general?
Yeah, for sure. So I can share a few. On the self-publishing side, we have a writer who I can't reveal his true name, even though I know it, but he goes by Jack Tilde on the platform. Tilde, like that's part of like a exclamation point or part of a, I don't know. It's a something.
Oh, very writerly of them.
It's very writerly. Yes. So Jack knew that he was going to self-publish from the beginning, but he got his work out there on our platform, and just like the community reaction to it was so strong. And so his voice was incredible. So he always got 5 out of 5 on voice, like that's what everybody always ranked him. But then he noticed that, but people don't care as much about my character. And people don't necessarily know where the plot is going. And so he was then able to lean into his strength, but then find the tools that he needed to overcome those kind of, gaps in his author toolkit. So he built up his character development skill set. He built up his plotting structure. And then now he's got, his first novel is out there. It is in the world. It is self-published. Wow. But I mean, it's doing extremely well.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. And then other success stories. So sorry.
I want to hear all of them.
Yeah. So the other way we've used our platform is to connect directly with publishers who are looking for something very specific. So we did a challenge last year with Bushel and Peck Books out of California, and they were looking for middle grade stories. So they were a children's publisher, and they really wanted middle grade novels. Well, we just put we put their thesis out to our entire community. And we had, I think, 1,300 writers sign up to participate in this challenge. We had 150 who actually finished the challenge, which meant to do it, they had to get 5 whole chapters posted of their story. But we took the top performers of all of those writers, and we just handed them over to Bushel and Peck. And we said, okay, here's our best ones. And Bushel and Peck wrote back and said, we could publish any one of these. So the system accurately found which stories the community liked best, and then Bushel and Peck offered a contract to their favorite out of the group that we handed over to them.
That's so cool. That's so helpful that you guys are really, you're sort of like this. I don't want to say middleman, but you're able to bring together all these authors. almost like your literary agents in a way, right? And then you're just kind of like giving them off to these publishers, and or in our case with self-publishing and on Being Impress, and something I want to talk to you about in a little bit, but it's trying to emphasize like all the different ways that you can get published and trying to help these authors get to that point, whatever it is, whether it's with a traditional publisher or self-publishing. So with that, because I know that the publishing, whether it's self-publishing or not, it can be somewhat of a challenging industry. So what are, some of the challenges that writers can face like during this process? And how does Ready Chapter One sort of help guide, authors, to the end goal?
Yeah. So we have a couple of thoughts come to mind, first of all.
Yeah.
So one is that it is a tech platform. And so it feels a lot like a forum. I wish I had $100,000 to spend on, UX.
Yeah.
But where we're at today with what we've been able to build, you need to be just a teeny bit internet savvy to be able to use the platform. Now, we went through and we made, how-to videos for everything from how to sign up to how to log in to how to give a review to how to post your first chapter. But it doesn't yet, and this is me mad at myself, it doesn't yet feel as easy as using your iPhone. And I want to, my vision, my goal is to get us there. But again, that's something that that a writer needs to be aware of if they're going to come on our site. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was about helping the writers when you see that you don't have scores that you like. So, let's say you post something and, oh, well, everybody gave it all threes. Like, what does all threes mean? All threes mean there's some work to do. So aside from the platform itself, we built an entire education suite that covers all of those critical storytelling craft elements. So I think the first module is story ideas that sell, and that's all about how do you craft your concept in a way that people will be curious about it and interested in it. Then we go into unforgettable characters. We do plotting with malicious intent, and like every one of these modules, we just brought in again our experts who know a ton about it, and so we built worksheets and we built downloads and there's video interviews, and so basically if there's anything as far as craft goes where you're realizing, this is a gap in my toolkit, we've got the module that you can go through and take the class.
Interesting. That's so cool. It's almost like you get to like take a creative writing course without having to like sign up for one, right? It's
Absolutely.
Because there really is so much more to storytelling than just putting a pen to paper or typing things on a keyboard, as much as we want to think that it's just that. And, a lot of the time I feel like a first draft maybe is just, as they say, telling the story, but that then you have to sort of craft it and perfect it and make sure that the story you're telling is compelling and interesting in a way that works. So that's great. And I think, that goes back to my next sort of follow-up to that is like any advice that you would give to, authors seeking to improve their craft, like through this process.
Yeah. So we have had folks go through that entire curriculum in 2 weeks. And then like, just for us to see how they level up after taking the classes and taking it seriously, I think that's probably one of the biggest kind of shifts in mindset for what I would call a hobbyist versus a professional is, as the pros take it seriously, and we see them immediately on our site because they are, they aren't treating this like, the thing that they do once a month in the afternoons. They're in the forums all the time. They're taking the classes. In the writing world, we call it butt in chair, BIC. So you gotta spend the time, and so if what you're writing today isn't getting you to your goal, then that's, again, it's just a clue. It's a piece of evidence that says, scientifically, it says, okay, I need to do something differently. And so whether that's Ready Chapter One, whether that's, watching YouTube videos, whether that's finding articles online, like if you're not accomplishing your goal, then you start down the list of resources that are available to you to get better.
And do you guys offer, once you are ready to publish, or once, do you offer sort of like ideas for next steps on like the next steps of the journey, whether that's, going with a traditional publisher or finding an agent or self-publishing, for instance, or finding an editor? Are there any sort of, do you help with those next steps too?
Yeah. So as far as help goes, we are not what I would call a one-to-one type of, platform. So, you're not going to like call up myself or my co-founder and, have us be able to kind of walk you through that process. But
right.
We do have, we have a complete module that's just on the querying process. We have another complete module that is a deep dive workshop into tips and tools for self-publishing. So like all of that content is there. And, I think that's the difference between, going with something like a platform like Ready Chapter One, which is super duper affordable, which has a free version and the free version, doesn't even, isn't that expensive versus, paying thousands and thousands of dollars for an editor. Some people are ready for that, like thousands and thousands of dollars, but a lot of the folks who are using our site aren't there. It's just not where they're at on their journey.
Yeah. And especially in the self-publishing community or just in general, I feel like, the idea is you have to finance so much of this yourself. So to be able to have, a step in the right direction with, whether it's the free version or the more affordable versions that you have after that. So actually that brings me to this question of the differences between, like, what do you get with the free version? And sort of like, I guess, when someone goes to your site and they're ready to start, like, what can someone expect? You have the free version or you have the paid version. I go into that a little bit of just sort of like when someone gets there, what do you do?
Yeah. And I'm going to go back to Jack Tild, who text messages me a good bit because he was one of our very first users.
Yeah.
And so he's and I probably shouldn't say this on the air, but he's like, Fred, you give too much away for free. Like on your site, he's like, you can accomplish so much on the free version that, that I'm not sure why people will sign up for the paid version. That's what I shouldn't say on your.
To be fair, BNPress authors, just so you know, you do get special pricing with the other versions. So just so you guys know.
So within our free version, you have access to, again, give and receive feedback with other writers on the platform. When we have the publishers come to us asking for manuscripts that they're looking for, that is open to you. That's free. If you are part of the paid version of the platform, that's when you get access to all of the classes, all the learning modules.
I see.
And we also run these mini contests, these agent challenges every month. So we bring in a different literary agent to judge one of our mini contests. And if you are picked as a finalist in the mini contest, then that agent is open to submission from you. So that's kind of how we structure it.
Right.
So there's definitely easy ways, to plug in and get started. And then if you find that that's all you need, great, hang out, have fun.
Yeah.
If you want me to be able to send my kids to college, then maybe sign up for the paid version.
If your career needs to be, if you want to make some more money, I guess, on your writing, right? That's funny.
No, but I mean, really, the paid version, I would say, is for serious writers who are looking at their career and who want to make sure that they have all of their author toolkit filled up with all the best tools. That's what that paid version is for.
I get that. And as I mentioned already, if you are a BNPress author, you get a special pricing discount. So we're really trying to ensure that, you're getting everything that you can out of this, out of this company. And so, okay, so we talked about all the different materials and getting into Ready Chapter One. Is there any specific, guidance that you can give for self-publishing authors? Like, how does Ready Chapter One's process compare, to working with a traditional editor, or if you're going in a more traditional route?
Yeah. So again, for self-published folks or indie publishing, I think that if you can get your work out there, if you can get 2 chapters posted, if you can get 3
Mhm.
chapters posted, you're going to get that immediate gut level reaction from the
Mhm.
community of writers, and you're going to see kind of, you know, where you fall on those scales.
Yeah.
If it was me, so when you're trying to get a new reader, you got to hook them with your first sentence.
Yeah.
Right. Well, first you got to hook them with the copy that's written on the jacket flap, right? So, or on the back of the book. So whatever.
Yeah,
that
but that's not what they're
description is-
using. But that's not what they're looking at in Ready Chapter 1, right? You're not looking at
No.
the book. You're just
Yeah.
looking at the
Yeah.
first chapter.
But yeah, if
Yeah.
that first sentence hooks
Yeah.
somebody, and then that first paragraph keeps them reading, and then that first chapter leaves them on a cliffhanger, like
Mhm.
those are kind of like the keys to making somebody say, "Hey, when are you going to post that next chapter? Because I want to
Yeah.
know what happens." And if you can get that reaction, like that's my goal for every writer on our site, is to get
Mhm.
the reaction of, "Hey, when are you going to post your next chapter? Because I
Yeah.
want to read it." So
Hmm.
it's a gut level thing. But if you can achieve that on our site, then you'll know
Yeah.
know that this is ready to go out.
It's almost like it's almost like in a way like a serialization of your novel, right? Because you're sort of you're if it's good in that form, right? You're kind of like giving little breadcrumbs, and then when you have the whole thing together, you'll know you have something really strong if you can keep
Yeah.
people like coming back every week or whatever for those little tidbits. And I know, you know, as a self-publishing platform, we always encourage authors, or we remind authors that just because you're looking for a traditional publishing experience, it doesn't mean you can't self-publish first. You know, there are obviously things that come into the self-publishing process. You have to get your own book cover. You have to get it edited. You know, it does take a little bit of, there's a little bit more of a financial burden, but you can still get your book out there as quickly as you want, right? You don't have to wait anymore. And I feel like with Ready Chapter 1, you can get that feedback, as you were saying, like so fast that you can turn around your book and get it into readers' hands like pretty quickly. So just a reminder, you know, to our audience that even if you're looking for that traditional career path with, you know, getting it published, you can still publish yourself first. And I feel like that's what's so great about what you do, is that you do have that agility that we have as well.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that, because it took me from the day I said, "Hey, I'm going to work in the publishing industry," to the day I signed my first contract, 10 years. 10 years. And a huge part of that is because at the time, all I knew to do was go to writers' conferences and sign up for a one-on-one with, you know, critique with an editor or an agent or another author. But there was a 6-month gap between every conference that I could make it to. And that's, you know, and that's if I gave myself the budget to do 2 conferences a year. But, you know, for folks who can maybe only make it to one, like 12 months between feedback on your manuscript, it's not an efficient process. It could still be effective, but it's not efficient. So our goal is that you can get that feedback within, you know, a week of posting your stuff. And that way you're leveling up way, way, way quicker than if you're kind of waiting on the conference route.
Yeah, I think it really gives authors so much more opportunity to get their work seen, to get it to, you know, that next level. And I know, you know, we're sort of talking about how your platform's like a tech platform, which actually made me think about, like, you know, this industry, especially with self-publishing and in general, like, is evolving year over year. We're seeing so many changes. So my question is actually a 2-parter. It's really like, how do you see Ready Chapter 1 sort of evolving in the same time to meet the needs of writers? And then also, it reminds me of like AI, right? And AI is now such a huge thing in sort of like a question mark in the publishing industry. So, you know, separately from that, how do you see AI kind of impacting what you do?
Yeah, so I'll start with AI, because we are an AI-free zone. So we ask our writers not to post work that has been written by AI. We ask them not to post reviews that were you know, developed by AI. In fact, we have it set up so you can't even like copy and paste someone else's work off of the site. Because first of all, nobody comes to, you know, a site like ours to get an AI review. Like you can paste your work into ChatGPT if that's what you're really looking for.
Yeah.
But and this was a conversation that I was even having this morning with the owner of a construction company about AI, and we were commenting on how AI cannot replicate human emotion, right?
No.
AI is great at synthesis. It's great at pattern recognition.
Right.
So it can help me code stuff for the site, but it's never going to replace the human interaction, the emotion, that connection between the reader and the author. And because AI hasn't lived my experience, AI hasn't lived your experience.
Right.
And so that's kind of like our vision is that AI never writes books. AI doesn't need to read books. AI is never going to buy books. So why would we ever want, why would we want the robots to write our books for us? That's not a world I want to live in.
Yeah.
So that was part 2 of your question, and I totally forgot what part 1 was.
No, that's okay. I was basically saying, aside from AI, then obviously, how else do you see Ready Chapter 1 evolving, to continue to meet the needs of authors?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the opportunity landscape is enormous. And so we actually, in this very room, my co-founder and I made what we called our opportunity bingo card. And we just put, 20 or 30 different things that we could do with Ready Chapter 1. And it's okay, what do we have the money for? What do we have the time to do? And so we're kind of mapping that out. And one of our big questions is, what do our users want most and what do they need most? So I'm gonna be vague about part of this because we don't have all the contracts signed yet. But where we can really push towards with Ready Chapter 1 is the ability to take those top performing stories, the people who come on our site and have either worked their way up to those really, really high story scores, or who come with already kind of market ready manuscripts. And we can do a much better job of connecting them with publishers who are looking for new stories to acquire. And I think that's probably all I should say about it right now. But there will be a big announcement probably in the next 3 months. Yeah, for a new partnership. It's going to be about the future of publishing.
Amazing.
We're pulling in really smart people to help us navigate this. But our goal is basically to build the end-to-end pipeline where you come in, you post your stuff, you level up, you get to a place where it's ready to go to market, and then we can actually help you bring it to market.
Awesome. Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait to see what this announcement is. I will have to definitely check that out when it happens, or you'll have to let me know when it's out there.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited. So I feel like, we really talked through so much. I know, I don't have any more questions on my end. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to talk more about, but I feel like we've really run the gamut on all the different things. And it's really exciting. I'm really excited that we are partnering to bring, Ready Chapter 1 to Be and Impress authors. I think they will benefit, so much from this. Once again, our authors, you do get a special discount if you do want to go there and use the paid services. So be sure to check that out. You can find, a link to our page with Ready Chapter 1 through our author services on bnpress.com. What about where they can find you on your social channels or anything else that they should know?
Yeah. So I've been working so hard that I haven't been on social media much. Although today I just signed up for a Blue Sky account. So I am the numeral 1 book nerd. .bluesky.social or whatever the rest.
Well, you're ahead of
us.
We don't have a Blue Sky account. So.
Yeah. So I joined Blue Sky today. I'm terrible. I'm sorry. If you're on LinkedIn, I'm way more active on LinkedIn because my job that now is as much, it's building tech, it's talking to investors, it's It's become way more businessy, and I don't like that about this part of the job, because at my heart, again, I'm a creator, just like every writer who is out there, everyone who's on our platform. My dream is to be sitting in the corner of a coffee shop, writing my next story and drawing the pictures to go along with it. So I do see like what we're building. I want it to feel like a gift to the writers. So because, we've had, like, Sarah and I have both had, this much success in the publishing industry.
Yeah.
And if the legacy we can leave behind is a way forward that is better than the slush pile, then, I feel like we'll have done a good thing with our lives.
That's amazing. I think what you're doing is great. I'm looking forward, to what we can do together, to bring Ready Chapter One to BM Press, and our authors. I know this is going to be a fruitful relationship. You guys are really going to give our authors the tools to create their best stories, and then publish with confidence. So I'm just excited all around, and I'm really appreciative of you being here today. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching. Again, if you have any questions about Ready Chapter One or what they do, please post in the comments. We will be sure to answer them. Otherwise, check them out. And thanks so much, Fred. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.